thank you for the invite tonight, and thank you from the fellow speakers. Usdaw is a union of a bit over 400,000 members, so we are the fifth biggest in the country. We've lost quite a lot of late. We're predominantly in the retail environment, the shop workers union as we are. Do you know that nationally in 2018 we lost some 87,000 shop workers jobs, and that's quite alarming. And we call them bricks and mortar jobs because obviously the bricks and mortar is what you see in all the city centres and the town centres. And it's not a level playing field. And it's not a level playing field anymore because the big online retailers, your Amazons of the world and so on, they're not paying their taxes in this country properly, are they? You know? And it's not a level playing field when you've got to go into Leeds or wherever it is and pay massive rents and rates to stay in those city centres and then pay your taxes as well. So we have a campaign running at the moment called Save Our Shops campaign, where we're asking councils basically and the government to look at this problem and sort it out urgently because you know, we have issues around automation, for example, where there's such as the co-op now, for example, they're wanting to even do away with the till, so you can actually go into a co-op, believe it or not, sometime in the near future and pay for your goods on your mobile phone. God knows how much theft they're going to get out of that one, but you know, it's crazy. Another of our campaigns that we run at the moment is the Time for Better Pay campaign, which we've tried to go to the government and say, you know, 10 quid an hour is not unreasonable. Everybody should earn 10 quid an hour. I don't even think that's enough, but you know, it's a start, isn't it? It's a start, because way back when somebody went up on the rostrum at the annual delegate meeting in Blackpool, what we held every year, I think it was 1999, and asked for a national minimum wage, people probably thought it was a ridiculous thing to ask for, but it came through, didn't it? It got through there eventually, and yes, the minimum wage is what it is. It's not enough, but it's something to protect people on lower rates of pay. Something that's very, very important. So £10 an hour is important. What also is important is we do away with the ridiculous thing of 0 hours contracts, because they are just crazy. How on earth anybody can pay a bill, know how they can pay a bill next week, next month, whatever that might be, if they're called into work, if they're lucky. We've got to a situation now where we could be back in the 1930s where people are queuing up at gates in the morning. I've seen it. At Amazon, especially in Doncaster, a patch which is on my remit, there's anybody that goes down that way in the morning will see hundreds, and I'm talking hundreds of vans, white vans parked outside that place. And the drivers of those vans, all self-employed, are desperately waiting to see if they get the call that day to come through the gates, load the van up and go out and do some deliveries. How on earth can that work in this day and age? You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. So we call for a minimum 16 hours. We know that's not enough, but it's something. If people get a 16-hour contract, at least they've got something they can look forward to. And also, what we want is a contract based on their normal hours, because what we're finding basically is that these employers are giving very short hours contracts, if at all, and they're still working people 30, 40 and sometimes more hours per week. If that's your normal hours, that's what you should have written on your contract of employment, so that you know next week and the next month and so on and so forth, you can get that coming through there. So it's a particularly difficult time for people to gain those them contracts of employment that they need to support their families at home. So as I mentioned, our Save Our Shops campaign, we want a robust strategy basically that the government will say, and we've been to them and asked them, they don't seem interested at all to listen to us. You know, come on, let's be fair about it. Give them a level playing field and let everybody, you know, work off the same page basically, so that we can make these town centres, these city centres survive, rather than going into. I did Wakefield a couple of months ago. I can't remember, were you there? Did you turn up? I think you did, didn't you? And some great comments from the general public, to see somebody coming in there and actually making a song and dance about this, shouting and bawling about why these high street shops are empty, and the general public engaging with us and saying, well, thank you for that, thank you very much, because it's time somebody actually did something about this. And to hear them comments, you know, it fills you with glee, because there is some passion out there to make these places survive. Road transport links, we want rail links, don't we, into these places, and trains that are, you know, we can get a seat on, and they're a decent price. They fetch people into the city and town centres where they can do their shopping. Make them a community hub. We want something to happen in there for the youth, and bring, so they come in there and don't hang around on street corners and cause trouble. We want somewhere for them to go. So places like this are really, really important, we think, for the future of the shops as well in there. Freedom from Fear, another campaign that we do. Respect for shop workers is what it's called. The abuse that shop workers particularly take in the job is horrendous. You know, predominantly on the lowest pay of all. The shop workers are the front line. They're in there, and some drunken lout decides to come in on a night and give them grief for whatever reason, usually because they'll be refused the sale of alcohol or whatever it might well be. They then take the brunt of this, and these people can be quite violent and aggressive at times. We again have been to the government and said, you know, there should be some standalone offence here, because a shop worker is not protected by any law, really. They're not. And the police cuts, the numbers of the police, they're not interested half the time to come round on some of these things. They haven't the time to do this. And it's all right, Boris, isn't it, shouting and bawling about, go on, you know, we're going to put you 20,000 new coppers on the streets. He was they were the party that took them off in the bloody first place. So they're giving us nothing back. They're just trying to patch a hole up there, what they created in the first place. A police officer or an NHS worker doing their daily work, their job, would be protected. They are protected, and there is a standalone offence for doing that. You will be prosecuted, but not for a shop worker, which is what we ask, that they should be protected more and more and more. Usually this time of year is worse for them as well. Christmas time, for some reason, it's manic, isn't it? People want drink and they go out there, and the first person they can see is this poor person stood in front of them at a counter in an express store somewhere. I mentioned the co-op. They get particularly bad ones because they work one-on-one. There's only ever 2 people in those co-ops on a night, you know, and they have these headsets now where apparently that's going to save them, because they can now say to somebody working in the back shop, when they're stood in the front of the building on their own, I need help here. What good's that going to do? Doesn't do any good, is it? But they can't afford to put security guards in these shops now, they tell us. Can't have any security, this costs too much. Now the price is through the roof, we've got to survive. It's all about money, it's not about the welfare of the worker that's in there. So that's what we ask the government to do. Verbal abuse is another abuse that goes off quite regularly. It's not part of the job. They don't go to work to be abused, either physically or verbally. So thank you for listening to me tonight. What we must do, by the way, we're an active part of the TUC, and Unions Together I go and I speak to quite regularly. I'm the political coordinator, so I'm spending a lot of time out on the streets at the moment with Deanne. So I know Ian had said that he tried to get Deanne tonight, but she's majorly busy at the moment from the GMB, and we're hoping to manage to put her into Morley, an outward seat, which last time was about, I'm not sure, it was about 2,000 votes. I think Andrew Jenkins won that one by, and if we remember the time before when Mr. Balls lost his seat there to a very, very 67, was it, or something like that. when Ed Balls lost that one. So we're hoping to push Deanne into that seat. My own constituency is Hemsworth, so we're out there fighting as well for John Trickett, and I'm with Ed Miliband tomorrow out in Doncaster, where he's trying to turn the arm of some Usdaw workers up their backs to go and vote for him in his own constituency. He's worried, is Ed Miliband. How on earth we've got to a stage, I don't understand, in this day and age where a seat in Doncaster is not safe. And they honestly believe that. The Coalfield seats are not safe, is what they're telling us. And that's terrible news, isn't it? Out on the streets, the people I'm knocking the doors on are telling us they hate Jeremy Corbyn. They hate Jeremy Corbyn. But they won't give us an answer if they're not going to vote for Jeremy. Who would you want there then? If it's not Jeremy, who would you want to front the Labour Party? They can't give you an answer. They've just, I don't know, they've just disengaged with us. It's important that we all get together as trade unions too. Do you know, the stronger we are, aren't we? The more the unity we have with trade unions through the TUC, we need to all stick together and down these stupid idiots. Get rid of them. It's the last month of the decade, isn't it? So what better start to the next decade could we have by shifting these ignorant sods? Okay, thank you.